Brett Schroeder, thanks very much for joining me. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you came to Costa Rica.
I'm from Houston, Texas, and originally I worked in advertising, and I decided to move to Costa Rica in the year right around 2003 and start my own surf school. I picked up my roots, moved to Esterillos here with a couple of surfboards. We started in 2003. We've done about 4,000 plus surf lessons, and we've ruined the lives of about 4,000 people. I'm sure we could ruin your life too if you just give us a chance.
Yeah, but my parents would be horrified to see me end up yet another surf bum in Costa Rica. Was there any particular reason you chose or focused on Costa Rica? Did you have a connection here, or did you just know there was good surf?
You know, the thing about Costa Rica, there are other locations that may be a little less expensive. The thing about Costa Rica is it's a stable government. The weather is excellent year round. We have infrastructure. We have many flights that come here. It's the best option as far as Central America goes. You know, it may not be the lowest at the grocery store. You know, we eat fresh fish anyway, so.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about your community, Esterillos. We've only driven past it a few times between Jaco and headed south to Dominical. What's it like in your neck of the woods?
Well, we're kind of a tucked in little beach town, quaint little beach town. It's just close enough to Jaco and Merida that we have resources, but the wave here is perfect for beginners and perfect for intermediates. And we're getting a lot of SUP people here too, but we have a reef that sticks out that makes the wave really, really nice for intermediates.
Uh-huh. You know, I'm completely ignorant of the surf world myself, having only been on a surfboard a couple times in my life. Where are those really good spots in Costa Rica for learners, people who are just starting fresh and looking for a surf school like yours? Obviously, you feel good about Esterillos' wave. Where else can you find those good learners' waves?
Costa Rica is really blessed to have a large variety of waves and a large variety of beginner waves. Up in your area, you have the beaches like Nosara, Samara, nice gentle learning waves. Santa Teresa, there's a great spot called Playa Hermosa, but that's in Santa Teresa, not the one that's close to us here. Then we're here in the Central Pacific. We have Esterillos has a variety of breaks and nice all sand breaks. As you move further south, you know, Dominical has some good little secret spots, and Uvita has become known for a really good beginner wave too. And there's many more.
Yeah, is there a particular time in the year that's better for surfing in general, or can you pretty much count on any high tide bringing good surf?
Well, the best time of year really for beginners is between December through March, April. Because that's when the southern hemisphere is kind of cooled down a little bit, and we get smaller waves. Now, as we get into April, May, June, the southern hemisphere heats up a little bit, and we start getting our south swells. But there's always little hiding spots that we can go to, little secret bays that we can escape to whenever the waves get too big. So we got to have some local knowledge.
Yeah, that's something that's from a perspective, someone who grew up in Indiana, and I had no concept of the surf world. I'm always shocked to find out, or meeting surfers, you all are somewhat meteorologists, you have a knowledge of the ocean that a lot of people don't recognize as important to finding these good swells, what direction they're coming from, etc. I mean, before moving here, I had zero clue that these conditions even changed. Even talking, more specifically, when you take people out to surf lessons, what time of day in terms of the tide do you like to help learners? Is it right at high tide and you start then, or do you go before the tide comes in?
Well, first of all, our day is planned around the tides. So if anybody asks me a question about my calendar, I say, what time is high tide? Yeah. And we actually have the tide on our watch, so it's always available. Around here, we focus on the high tide, maybe about 3 hours before high, up to 3 hours after high. So
Okay.
there's a 6 hour window, and that window moves about 1 hour later every day. So, but that's specific to here.
Yeah.
In your area, there may be some low tide breaks that are working. So it's really just talking to some of the locals and figuring out what tide is working best for your beach.
So if one of my viewers out there is looking to come to Costa Rica and go through and surf school and get the basic skill set, I want to be able to stand up on a surfboard, how long of a trip should they plan, and sort of how much time do they need with a surf school like yours to get that basic skill set, standing up and enjoying yourself and not hurting yourselves out on the waves?
Well, first of all, most people make mistakes and they plan a trip that's a little too short. So I would say you need a trip of minimum of a week. 10 days is good. 2 weeks is good. If you're able to take that much time off. With us, you probably need about 3-day package to get to the intermediate level. We're going to start out in the whitewater and master some of the basics, the pop-up, the stance, riding all the way to the beach. And then we're going to work on some intermediate skills, including, paddling out into the waves, learning about etiquette, the people, that we're not going to be dangerous to people around us. So I believe about a 3-day package, you're looking at about probably 9 hours or more in the water to, and that's kind of a minimum package. There's surf schools with 3-day packages, 5-day, 7-day.
And so that 3-day package, I know this will vary greatly throughout the country and school by school. 3-day package at 9 hours of surf. About how much is that going to cost a visitor?
I would say the range on a 3-day package on a daily cost would be anywhere from $900, which is about $300 a day, to $1,500, which is about $500 a day, something like that. Our basic surf lesson is a $60 for an hour and a half lesson. So it's not necessary that you go through a package or a surf camp.
So in your 3-day package, is Brett's boards including room, board? I'm sorry, room and board takes on a different meaning when you're talking about surf schools. That $900 price tag, is that also including staying at your facility?
That was before the pandemic. After the pandemic, we've kind of moved away from housing. For the other schools, like especially in your area, that would include usually a breakfast and lunch, and then they can go fend for themselves for dinner, or maybe breakfast and dinner, and transportation to the beach includes the board, usually includes video, and photos. There's some really good schools here.
Yeah, I was stoked that you contacted me, someone from outside of my area, because you're sort of a neutral third party. So let's say my viewers are choosing to come to Costa Rica. They've picked their location and now they want to find the best surf school in that location, because in our area in Playa Tamarindo there have to be close to a dozen surf schools. What are some of the things that people can use to distinguish between them and figure out which one is the best? First of all, are there any certifications that they can look for?
Yeah, there are definitely some international certifications. The International Surf Association has a certification for surf instructors. The Red Cross has standards for for basic life support and also for ocean rescue. We do our ocean rescue training through the Coast Guard of Costa Rica, but Red Cross offers a lot of those certifications as well. But basically, when you go to choose a surf school or a surf camp, it's just kind of like choosing a restaurant also. First, you go to the Google search, you narrow it down to about 3. You see some of their reviews. Now you want to go to TripAdvisor and read between the lines on those reviews. You can tell a genuine review whenever you read it. They're usually a little more lengthy and not just like 2 lines or something like that. That was hey, can you write us a review? They wrote 2 lines and they're out. But totally. You can see a genuine review. And if you're already in the area, maybe visit their office. When you look at somebody's business, you can see how organized they are. It says a lot about them. Take a look at their boards. They have to have the right equipment. look at their certifications, ask them questions like, hey, where are we going to be surfing? What size board are we going to be using? What is your student to instructor ratio? Is it one instructor for two students, or is it one to one? That's a big question. Do they look professional? It's really all about safety at the end of the day, because we're taking people into the ocean, and we want to make sure people are safe. And when you're choosing a surf school, they need to be professional.
We were down in Dominical. My son took a lesson with somebody who doesn't have an office, who basically sits under a palm tree all day. Everybody knows him in town as a surf instructor. I think we, as people who have lived here over a decade, felt very comfortable because we understand how beach towns can work, and we didn't necessarily expect to see all of that professionalism. But a lot of people out there considering for their first trip, I think very much if you can get the idea of whether or not that person has a permanent presence in town, that office, an actual location, or is it just some surf instructor? And then really what you said was key, the student to teacher ratio, because I know there are schools that want to cram in a big class with one instructor, give a discount lesson, and really crank them through. But that obviously can be really, really difficult for somebody who may need individualized support in learning.
Exactly.
Tell us a bit more about your business. What kinds of ratios do you try to maintain, student to instructor? How do you typically work with clients in that regard?
Our student to instructor ratio is a 2-to-1, and that would be from the teenager up to whatever age. When you get below about 10 years old, that's a 1-to-1 instruction.
Okay.
So, and we usually know in advance the ages of our students. And those people really need 1-to-1, and so we need to make sure that we have enough instructors on hand that day. And something that you said earlier, there's nothing wrong with the guy sitting under the palm tree. That everybody has a right to earn a living, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think you can read their character pretty quickly. That's how everybody started out. Also, that's how I started out.
Yeah, no, and this is, I think that there are many areas in Costa Rica where you will find TripAdvisor has all of the information that you would need to find out about a surf school or to find a good provider for sure. There are other parts of the country where you get off the beaten path, and you may have to just ask around town for any kind of service provider in general. But frequently on my channel, obviously, I touch on the importance of that local testimony. And in our situation, you can feel comfortable if you can walk around town and 3 different people tell you, this guy is the best surf instructor in town and you should work with him. Those local testimonies can be very, very impactful and supplement things. Like your incredible TripAdvisor reputation, I wanted to bring up Brett's Boards has 105 5-star reviews. I wouldn't just have anybody on my channel without doing a little bit of research on who they are. So you have a stellar online reputation that's clearly been built up over years of good work. Congratulations on that, because I'm sure it's cost you a lot of time and effort.
Thanks, Matt.
Are there any other factors besides TripAdvisor, some of these things you've mentioned that you would use to evaluate surf school and sort of look at who they are?
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about maybe you're having lunch at the restaurant on the beach and you say, hey, who do you recommend for a surf teacher around here? So doing a little bit of investigation that's an excellent tactic, especially when you hear the same name come up 2 or 3 times. And so just take your time to do a little bit of research, because it's an important choice.
Now, what kinds of people can learn how to surf? I'm 37. I've never done it before in my life. It's intimidating to me. What kinds of clients have you worked with, and is there really, certain kinds of people that should avoid surfing?
Actually, our range of students goes from 3.5 years old to 77 years old. It's never too late to learn to surf. I know some of the people that are moving to Costa Rica, that are choosing Costa Rica for their new home.
Yep.
They're not 37, they're more about 57. But I want to stress that it's never too late to learn, and that's a realistic goal, that we're going to get you surfing. I think as long as you have a little bit of fitness and some basic fitness and some basic flexibility, it doesn't hurt to do a little cardio before you come here, maybe a little bit of swimming, a few laps, walking. Yoga, it's basically you're just stretching your muscles out for more flexibility.
The couple times I've tried, and in fact, I recently had a board that we borrowed from somebody, and you never realize all of a sudden, once you're out in the ocean, everybody on the beach can see you. And it can be a somewhat difficult, emotional, sort of embarrassing thing to be the absolute learner out there. And especially for someone, at my age, I do very few things where I horribly embarrass myself all the time, but suddenly you're out on the waves and sort of you feel vulnerable because everybody can see you. I think you also need a certain level of comfort with yourself because those first few rides might be a little bit ungraceful, to say the least.
To answer your question, it may not be pretty, from the beach, but the best surfer that's out there is the one that's having the most fun.
Yep.
And if you're having fun, then you're winning the heat right now. So you're the best surfer out there. So just takes a little bit of practice, and it takes a little time in the ocean, for your skills to develop. But don't worry if you boogie board down the face for the first 2 or 3 seconds, you pop up to your feet, and now you're having the time of your life.
Were you a surfer before your life in Costa Rica, or had you just wanted to come here and become a surfer? Growing up in Houston, Texas, we were close to Galveston, Texas. I learned to surf in Galveston when I was in high school. In my high school yearbook, I wrote, what do you want to be? And I said, a professional surfer. I graduated university, did my time in advertising, but eventually I moved towards my goal. And my goal is to be a part of the community, to be a part of the church, to be a part of all of this, but the element of adding the ocean into all that is also part of my goal. So you can be a part of your community anywhere that you live, but we have consistent waves here, and I really like that part. I think that Costa Rica's coast, from here all the way down to Panama, there are many communities that have benefited from entrepreneurs coming down and not just setting up shop to try and make a quick buck, but really investing in the community and trying to establish a business that's going to benefit in the long run the whole community. It's one of the favorite things. I love my job because I see my business contributing positively when people get construction work or more. And I know that in Esterillos, the community is seeing more jobs and, more tourism because your business is there, and that's a huge asset to a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tell me about the process of learning to surf. How do you get people from complete zero experience to standing up on a board in about 9 hours of work?
Well, first of all, in our first session, we start out on the beach in the shade. And we start talking about, are you going to surf regular or goofy? I've got some jokes that I've told for over 20 years. People are tired of them now, but we're going to do about 30 minutes in the shade, and then we're going to walk our surfboards out so we can save our energy. But we're basically going to learn all of the basics in the whitewater first, because there's a lot of repetition. If we just go straight out to the break, you may get 5 or 6 waves, but over there we're going to get 30 waves on this first session. And so there's a lot of repetition, and we can make a lot of adjustments to your stance and to your style and to your timing and everything. So we start out in the whitewater. After that lesson, it's a possibility that we can go a little bit further out at that same beach, or we will move you to an intermediate style beach where we have a little channel that we call the Girls Expressway. You can paddle out the Girls Expressway. We get into the lineup. We're careful not to interrupt the local surfers. We choose a spot that we call it the kiddie pool, but we choose a spot that's better than the whitewater, but maybe not in the way of the rest of the local surfers. And we start working on what we call the green waves. the wave that has a little face on it. After that, we can move into the lineup a little bit, and I make sure all of our students are able to do a front side turn and a back side turn, so that if they are headed towards somebody in the ocean, that at least they have control of their board. They're not going to get hurt, or anybody else is going to get hurt. So, but they do truly get the experience of surfing a green wave and all that comes with it.
Yeah, that dynamic you mentioned, locals versus students, I think it's amazing that you're respectful of the locals, because another element I didn't understand from my childhood in Indiana was absolutely that waves are very important. The consequences could be huge. If you get in front of a local surfer who really was intent on catching that wave and you ruin their ride, you might get screamed at or worse. To me, there's also that cultural dynamic, as you mentioned, the etiquette and how things work out on the water. To me, one of the biggest misunderstandings might be that you can just rent a surfboard, paddle out, and give it a try, because besides the fundamentals of standing up, there are also all of these rules as to who gets the wave, who has the right to stay on it, who has to get off, etc. And so absolutely, you've got to have someone show you the ropes wherever you're learning in order to be able to adapt into your, community for sure.
Fortunately, Costa Rica is one of the most friendly countries in the world, and we don't have that much localism. There is a little bit of localism. We're blessed with a lot of friendly people that are giving advice and they're helping you out. So, but we are going to go over etiquette, show you how to be in a lineup and things like that, to show respect for the people when you paddle out.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett, I really appreciate your time and insight. People out there watching, again, I hate affiliate marketing, and if you're headed to Esterillos, we're going to give you Brett's information so that you can just contact him directly. That'll be in the description of this video. You can also find Brett's boards as one of the highest rated service providers on TripAdvisor. You can find their reputation on Google and see exactly what people have thought about their experiences at his surf school. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much for joining me, Brett.